This is a story all about how my life got flipped, turned upside down. I like to take a minute, just sit right down and tell you how I became an evil safety dude in my town.
Oh my goodness. Did you really just Fresh Prince-erize our Evil Safety Dudes podcast?
Yes, I
The
did.
the Fresh Prince of Safety?
How come you didn't drop a beat?
I was taken aback.
Do you know how to beatbox?
No. Terrible at it. Not even going to try.
All right. No. Just go like this. Go. Say two words, boots and cuts. Boots, cuts, boots, cuts.
I'm not doing that.
Come on, man.
It's not happening.
Let's do it again with the beat. It'll be better. Just go. Just say two words. Boots, cuts.
Boots, cuts. Boots,
All right, ready?
cuts. Boots, cuts.
I like to
boots,
take a minute,
cuts,
just sit
boots,
right there. I'll
cuts,
tell you how I
boots,
became an
cuts,
evil safety dude in
boots,
my town.
cuts. I mean, okay, all
I
right.
didn't rhyme that.
That wasn't too bad.
I botched it.
That
But
wasn't
your
terrible.
beatboxing was pretty good, though. you got a second career there.
There we go. We're firing it up.
All right, so welcome to IBC's Evil Safety Dudes podcast, where we're all about how not to die at work,
Yeah, it's
whether it
preferable.
be let's come up with new injuries, stepping on a nail, or
That's what we just did.
falling off a building.
That was the last one. Oh, no. Yeah, that's new. Don't
Yeah,
fall
just-
off buildings.
Yeah.
Don't get sucked into a machine.
All
Oh,
right.
man. Could you believe that? We had that in December. 2 people sucked into machines, like back to back.
Yeah, and that video you sent me was terrible. I actually had somebody the very next day
Yeah.
send me the video too.
Same one.
The same
Oof.
exact one the very
That
next
is-
day.
And I still stand by what I said. So far, I have not seen as complete of a human annihilation as I have in that video. Like, it's not the most gory video I've ever seen, but it's the most complete disassembly of a person I've
Yeah,
ever
for
seen.
those of you who don't know, security camera in a fab shop caught a worker wearing loose clothing getting sucked into a lathe. And it took him in and it spun his whole body around extremely fast, a million times,
Everything came off.
where
Everything.
he just became not liquid, but
No.
all his liquids was
Everything.
sprayed on the whole place.
He was completely disassembled.
And his
everything.
body was just in small little pieces, on both sides of the lathe.
It was crazy.
And a worker went over to stop it, almost slipped through the blood running through there, hit the e-stop, too late. The guy is literally in a million parts and just starts flipping out, and it's all on camera.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was.
It was terrible.
So,
what a great way to start the podcast.
well, don't do that at work.
Yeah, that's what we're about, though.
Do not
really,
do that
how
at work.
not that
Don't wear loose-fitting clothing that's going to get sucked you into machines.
and have your all moving parts that may cause employee injury be safeguarded.
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Anyway, what's this one about?
So today, me in particular, it comes up. I thought it was broad enough that would cover our listeners and help out everybody. Was hand and power tools. I think we should go over just some of the basic or maybe the most obnoxious regs that get broken or violated that lead to injuries. Let's talk about some hand and power tools today.
All right, that sounds good. Before we get into that, I'd like to introduce my co-host, Mr. AJ Hanscom. He is an authorized OSHA outreach instructor for the general industry and the construction industry.
Well, how very interesting, Mr. Iachino. I also would like to introduce my co-host, Aaron Iacino, who is an authorized OSHA outreach instructor for also the general industry and construction.
And what's been going on?
Man.
in your personal life.
Well, we just finished the holidays, got through, the mountains of eating and hanging out and all the extra stuff that's been going on. So it's hopefully a little bit of decompression. You get out of the stress, you get out of the rush. Like,
Hopefully you didn't incur too much debt.
hopefully you didn't
Buying
incur too much debt.
Presents for everybody.
Right? So just relaxing, man. Just
Okay,
trying
cool,
to,
man.
Do my regular routine, work out, get back into a good norm. And the holidays are over. The holidays sure are fun, but man, they are exhausting.
Cool.
How about you? Any new updates? Anything new you'd like
Nothing
to
new.
share?
Church is going good. For those you don't know, I also pastor church, and the holiday time, we see an increase in people coming in. Easter and
for sure.
Christmas are big times to go to church. I think the mom guilt trips the rest of everybody.
Go
And
to
it's-
church.
and so they show up. So it's really nice. With COVID protocols, making sure we're doing the social distancing and everything, and making sure it's safe. But it's nice to see people coming in. So that's what's going on new with me. But as far as power tools, I got a real life case I wanted to share today.
Oh yeah. So is this a personal case?
Yes, it's
You got
one
to
we
work
both
this one?
worked. We both worked this one.
If okay, I think I know what you're talking about.
So an employee decided to bypass safety rules. Imagine
Okay, so
that.
you've narrowed it down to approximately every case we've ever worked, almost.
Yeah, and this specific one, he had duct taped the trigger on the on position on a corded hammer drill.
Okay, I'm pretty much on board with the case. I think I know exactly what we're talking about.
And hammer drills usually have a forward handle right by the chuck as well.
Yep.
For like better grip.
Kind of like stabilizing the piece of equipment.
Yeah. And so, in addition to duct taping it on the on position, he was wearing extremely loose fitting gloves on that
Yep.
on both hands, and somehow, not gripping it firmly, that index finger got out towards the chuck that had the drill bit on there, and that chuck, as it's rotating and not guarded, it grabbed a hold of that loose fitting glove and twist and ripped his tip of his index finger off.
I remember this.
And caused a complete amputation of that
It's the whole thing
left
just
index finger.
They just come right off.
Yeah, and so power tool, real life case. What's the moral of that story?
I mean, there's quite a few. I mean, there's several things going on. Obviously, don't modify your power tools.
Yeah.
Don't modify them. If it's got a constant pressure on-off switch, you need to keep that in use and functioning. That's for your safety and health and well-being.
That's an actual
That is
violation,
an actual
right?
OSHA
like
reg.
OSHA doesn't even need to cite general duty clause on that one. They got an actual
constant pressure on-off switches must be maintained.
Yeah,
but
they got
then
an actual one on that.
if I may gander to guess that the employee was doing something inappropriate with that tool, I would say they weren't using that forward grip handle. I would say that they may have been slightly less than honest. And my guess would be that they were doing something I have seen with my own two eyeballs on job sites, is where when somebody's trying to guide or begin that hole, they will actually put their gloved hand around the chuck itself to kind of guide it in and get that
steady it in
that
to,
more
to
accurate.
Get a little indent going.
Yes, exactly. Rather than holding that hand off to the side and you're at that 90-degree angle, and then if you want to fix it to put the handle underneath, you got to readjust and take stuff apart. I think that they had the tool the way they liked it and where they're comfortable, and instead of fixing the tool, they were like, you know what, I'm going to start this hole. I'm going to hold the key chuck in my gloved hand and let it free rotate in there and guide it in, and maybe that's how they got hurt. But maybe that's all speculation. That could be 100% wrong.
No, I it's definitely a hazard that people do not want to do. I don't think it's what happened in this case, because that wouldn't have ripped off his index finger, because that would have been in his palm.
Well, that's what I'm thinking, is with that rotation, with the whole chuck right there, if it would have been rotating against the grain to grab that finger, it could have literally passed over that finger and pulled it into the chuck, and then it's right there.
Yeah, definitely dangerous.
So, I mean, yeah, either
and
way.
I wasn't there, but
the
injury was consistent with the story, because the way it was ripped off, it was like it was open and came up this way. So.
I see.
But both are bad. You don't want to do either one for sure.
Okay.
So that was a real life case study of the day. Do you got any OSHA regs or updates on hand or power tools for us?
Oh man, there's just too many. If I just had to like randomly pick one out of thin air, the one that I really like is kind of what we just touched on: is do not modify your hand and power tools. So don't. And modification goes into a lot of things. But if you got hammers, don't completely cover them in tape so that they feel softer. If you've got power tools, don't tape down the handles or drill. One thing that I actually have seen is people drill a little notch into a constant pressure switch, like a gun trigger style, and they'll drill a little hole, and then they can close it and put something like a nail or a screw in it, and then it stays on permanently. So don't modify your power tools. They have to be used according to manufacturer's instructions.
Yeah, definitely, and always inspect them before you use them. Yeah, those are some good OSHA regs of the day, brought to you in part by AJ Hanscom, authorized OSHA outreach instructor who does not represent OSHA.
There should be like a little chime. Like,
yeah, we need a disclaimer. Yeah, thank you for our public service announcement. Okay, new safety gear for hand and power tools. Well, I'd say one that's come up in recent history because of the new OSHA silica regulations.
Yep.
I've seen a lot of major brands, Milwaukee, DeWalt, Makita, all come out with HEPA vacuum attachments for their different hammer drills.
That's right. And there's both kinds. There's an aftermarket attachment you can get, which mounts over your older style equipment.
Okay.
But then there's also new ones where you buy the whole thing, and it is a non-removable vacuum. It's just built into that hammer drill.
So with these new silica requirements, where they don't want us to breathe in those white clouds of shards of crystals anymore to stab into our lungs and cause all kinds of problems for us, the manufacturers had said we could help out with this. We can invent HEPA vacuums that attach to the drill, and right at that point of operation where that drill bit is meeting that dry concrete and could be creating a cloud, we're actually going to pull that in through a HEPA filter, and then the employee operating the tool doesn't even need a respirator, doesn't need water.
No longer exposed to that dust cloud. Yeah, you don't got to come up with the hose and clean up some slurry. Like, it's just right there. It's safe.
So I think that's really cool.
I do too. I think that's a pretty neat little
don't have to wear respirators.
attachment.
We always try to avoid wearing respirators.
Right.
Too many rules for those.
Oh, man.
And
We don't want to accidentally make this a silica class.
Yeah, and that's engineering it away. But that's a really cool new safety gear for power tools.
I agree. I think those things are awesome, and they make them for everything. Like, they even have great big ones that attach to the top ends of jackhammers.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, they've got so many really cool ones.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so main topic today, hand and power tools. So when I'm on sites and I'm doing a site safety inspection, I always look at their hand and power tools.
Oh, for sure.
Because OSHA does.
Oh, yeah.
Because that company has asked me or you to come there to act as OSHA to see what OSHA would get them on. Sometimes we call it the low-hanging fruit.
Oh, yeah, you want to pick the easy ones, but you want to be a little more thorough, a little more in-depth.
Yeah, we definitely try to. But what do you see when you're out there, hand and power tool violations?
Well, the bright, shining, obvious ones are taped-up tools. I see it all the time. I see a damaged tool that's busted and it's still in use.
Yeah, for sure. OSHA doesn't allow you to use damaged stuff. So hand and power tools would be like a mushroomed head on a chisel, a hammer that's got nails in it to keep the head from flying off, cracked handles.
You remember that OSHA inspection we did? A couple companies got called on silica. You remember we met that down there?
Yeah.
So the whole job site got stopped. OSHA found a great big driving maul, huge sledgehammer, and the handle on this thing was duct taped up. I mean, like crazy duct tape. And OSHA actually shut these guys down from doing their work and said, you can't keep going with this thing until you get all the duct tape off of this handle, because we got to inspect your tool and see if it's broken.
One time I was doing an inspection and I saw a guy with a hammer on his tool belt, and he had a ton of tape on it right under the head on the top of the handle.
Okay.
And I said, dude, are you using a broken hammer that you duct taped together?
Yeah.
I said, OSHA is going to beeline for that. And,
for sure.
That could be a serious violation up to $13,000. And he said, no, it is not broke.
No, so he just did that.
Why did you put tape on it then?
Okay.
And he said, to prevent it from breaking.
Kind of reinforce it.
He says, you miss. He was like actually built concrete forms.
Okay.
And he's like, sometimes you miss what you're aiming at, and it hits right there on the top of that handle, and that's where it does crack. So my hammer is perfectly good. I'm preventing damage.
Smart, it's saving money in the long run. But what if OSHA showed up,
right,
and they see this thing that's all taped up, and what's the first thing they're going to do? When they find the hammer that's covered in tape, what's the first thing they do?
I think two things. They're automatically going to snap that picture, write that down, sight on it, not even check if it's really damaged.
Yeah, they're just going to go, oh.
If he's a little bit more seasoned and thorough and doesn't want something that's going to get thrown out in an informal conference, if he actually wants to make sure he's got something, he might ask to take the tape off.
Okay.
And in my specific case, it could have gone either way, because if it was brand new and he did that and they took the tape off and there was no damage, he's not going to get busted.
Okay.
Unless the OSHA guy says, you're inhibiting inspection, I'm going to bust you.
So there is a way to still get busted.
Yeah, I would say so. But on the other hand, if he took that tape off and found damage.
Oh, yeah, now you got hit.
Because the guy is missing, he is hitting that part of it. It is causing damage, but maybe not as much because he had the tape. But the guy doesn't know it's getting damaged because it's covered.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I love the case that you brought up, because for me, and that's kind of why I wanted to talk about power tools today, is because the guys we work with are smart and they think ahead, and they're really not. People give construction workers and other tradesmen, they give them a hard time.
Better at math than I am.
Oh, they're smart guys. And so this guy, in your exact incident, he looked at that and said, you know what? I'm using this hammer a lot. I don't want to keep buying new hammers, and I want to keep the hammer that I'm using safe. So I'm going to protect my tool, and that's cool. But the problem that he runs into is the long term. So as he keeps using that tool, and he's got that big bandage right underneath the head, and he keeps hammering away. Aaron, is he ever going to notice a crack underneath that tape?
Probably not.
No. So then what's eventually going to happen? If that thing gets bad enough, damaged enough, and it snaps off while he's using it, it's going to be an injury that he never saw coming. And in his mind, that hammer's probably like still safe and good to go. He has no idea it's broken.
And it's probably not going to hurt him.
Hopefully.
It's probably going to fly off and
yeah.
nail somebody with the head of that hammer as he's swinging. That would be a bad one.
That'd be really bad.
I wouldn't want to get hit with that. All right. The other top OSHA violation I seen is guards off grinders.
Honestly, I run into just like guards just completely thrown away. I've walked into a job site before and just seen a guard with no grinder like anywhere nearby. They're just on the floor because somebody bought a new grinder, took the guard off, and then just left.
Never put it on.
Never put it on.
It doesn't come on most of the time.
Oh, guys, yeah, but they opened it, got everything out.
Yeah,
guard
just threw the guard away with the box. Like, what's this stupid thing?
Right.
Yeah, when I see a guard on a handheld grinder, angle grinder, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Because that's more rare anymore.
That's what's really fun for some of my safety training classes is to show people all of the fun ways a grinder can get stuck in you. Now, we have that one video, which is really interesting, of the guy who's using the grinder and he catches his work and he slices his tummy.
Okay.
And that's a gnarly video to watch just in general. But there's all of these videos of people using grinders and the wheels explode.
Right.
And these pieces fly into this person's face. And so there's the one that went viral this last year where it's like half of a grinder wheel stuck inside this guy's safety glasses, and that's really cool. But then there's so many others where it's like in somebody's cheek, or it's pinning their tongue to their teeth, or there's a real nasty one of a big 10-inch wheel that exploded, and it bisected a guy's face.
Man.
It just, from ear to ear, he's cut in half. He's alive, and he's in the hospital, and they got a big feeding tube and breathing tube in him.
Man, from an angle grinder.
From an angle grinder.
So just recently, we had a real local case.
Okay.
Where a guy was just got complacent with it.
Yep.
And he was just passing it from one hand to the next without, like, letting it come to a full stop.
Like, what do you think? His hand was getting a little tired or fatigued from holding it all day, or why was he?
Or sometimes you just the positioning of the work, you got to do it from a left hand because how your position
that makes sense.
related to what you're grinding. And he was switching hands with it, got a little complacent, switching hands with that wheel fully rotating, and it got his thumb and split the nail in half.
Oh, I saw that picture.
Deep.
It went to the bone.
Yeah. I checked him out the other day, and he's healing up real good.
Does he have a double fingernail?
He does. He didn't lose it. I was like, how did you not lose that nail?
That is pretty good.
Because he split it directly in half.
Right down the line.
Yeah. And it sucks to work. When you have an injury, you don't realize how much you use that part of the body until it gets hurt. And
oh, my gosh.
I bet you for the last month, he's been really realizing how important a thumb is.
You mean the thing that, like, separates us from the animals?
Yeah, because you're using that, and he
constantly.
He's a tradesman, but he's a laborer, so he works with his hand. Yeah, you don't get a break from your hand. So that's some real life OSHA stories. What other top violations we seeing out there? Damaged tools, no guards on grinders, maybe some modifications.
Maybe, but another one I see all the time is plug-in tools or extension cords without ground pins.
Oh, yeah.
That's super, super common one.
When I was a news safety guy, I saw an angle grinder on a site without a ground pin.
Okay.
But it was not broken off. It didn't even come with one, and it was brand new.
Okay, so it must have been double insulated.
Yes, but I didn't know that at the time.
Oh,
I was a news safety guy. I was kind of baffled.
So you were like,
I thought I got him on something. I thought I found a safety hazard, and then I learned about double insulation power tools, so they don't have the ground pins. But no, you're right, man. When people bust those ground pins off, and a lot of times they don't do it on purpose. They're leaving the tool on the ground. They're not wrapping it up. They're not keeping it safe. People are walking on it. When they step on that end, the two flat pins, you could bend back.
Yeah.
Many, many times. It's actually hard to rip those out.
They are pretty resilient.
But that dumb ground pin, I don't know what the deal is with that. Once you bend that once and you try to snap it back, it just pops off.
It's gone.
I don't know why they don't design it like the first one. We need some electricians and some power tool manufacturers to explain that to us. Because if they could figure that out with a flat pin, why can't they figure that out with a ground pin?
That's an excellent question.
Yeah.
I'm not into being an electrician enough to be able to answer that question for you.
You don't manufacture power tools in your
Nope.
spare times?
I do not.
Okay. So anyway, when that ground pin's off, why is that a big deal?
Well, what could happen to you if there was a problem with that power tool or maybe an exposed part in that power tool and that ground pin's not there?
Say that again?
So let's say the ground pin is missing
Yeah.
and then there's an electrical problem with the power tool,
Okay, right?
right? Because it functions, right, without the ground pin.
Yeah,
It'll still plug in.
100%.
It'll still turn on.
It'll still run.
So why do I need it?
Well, that's what I was asking you.
Oh.
You just asked me the same question back.
Oh,
I'll answer it.
okay.
It's a big deal because you could die at work.
I didn't think so. I thought you just turn on.
No, you will die. How will you die at work? Well, you just disrupted your safe ground path. So now if there's a grounding issue, that electricity may decide to ground through you.
So if you are the path of least resistance, or I guess
Yeah,
what I
no,
should
that's
say
well
is without the grounding pin, you are much more easy to become the path of least resistance.
Yeah, you are the path of least resistance. Your body
just-
to the ground.
Yeah.
Because you took out the designed ground system. If
That's my bad. I thought you were asking me, and I asked you. Yeah, nope.
It's all
I'm
good.
I'm back.
So
sorry about that.
If your outlet is wired correctly, it has a ground path built into it through the electrical wiring system of your building.
Yep.
If everything's up to code.
Sure.
But when you don't have that ground pin, you don't have access to that safe ground path. So you become the path of least resistance. And let me mess with your brain. How much electricity, if it passes through your heart, could cause your heart to go into ventricular fibrillation?
Now, fun story about myself is I actually had some really good times with PVCs and premature ventricular contractions.
Okay.
And I didn't even get that explained to me at all. They didn't tell me how much power or like what kind of power, but I've heard it several different ways that it's not the amount of power it takes to stop your heart, it's the type of power it takes to stop your heart.
Okay.
So if you have a good answer on that one, lay it on me. I'd love to learn
Yeah,
that today.
definitely.
Okay.
And this comes from the OSHA regs and
Okay.
from the OSHA electrical safety PowerPoint that we always teach in the OSHA 10s and 30s. 0.75 milliamps.
Now, what happens if that gets higher than that?
Well, then it's worse.
It's worse.
But all it takes, the minimum amount to disrupt your heart's normal sinus rhythm, to throw you into ventricular tachycardia, ventricular fibrillation, basically where your heart's having a seizure and not pumping enough and you're dead in minutes, it's just 0.75 milliamps. So it's not even 1 milliamp. So that's not even 1 millionth of an amp. So it's less than 1 millionth of an amp. If it passes through your heart, is all it takes to kill you within minutes because your heart's not pumping. It's basically seizing.
Okay.
And you could do chest compressions on someone and manually pump that heart for him to keep that brain alive. But that's not going to put the heart back in normal sinus rhythm.
Right.
The only way to put the heart back in normal sinus rhythm is to slap that automated external defibrillator,
Right.
or lovingly called the AED, on somebody, and zap them with about 60 joules. And hopefully, if everything goes right, that causes the heart to freak out, quit seizing, and restart. It's basically reboot.
Right. Now, there have been situations where during CPR, the heart has, for whatever reason, on its own, either started beating normally
For sure.
or returned from its abnormal rhythm during chest compressions. But like Aaron said, most of the time, it requires outside help.
Yeah, an AED. And we're not talking about just heart failure, you know, because
Right.
CPR is awesome for that. But we're talking about specific, like ventricular fibrillation, stuff like that, caused from that electricity going through your heart. And it doesn't take much. So when I see an employee working with a power tool, he's got that cord ripped, and I'm seeing copper wire.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, oh, don't worry about it. It's low voltage. I'm like, first of all, that's not low voltage. That's like 110. You know, second
Right.
of all, it only takes 0.75 milliamps to kill you. So
Right.
let's tag that out.
I'd rather not have my human body turned off like a machine.
Can I just tape that cord if I have that copper showing on my corded power tool? Can I just tape it with electrical tape?
Well, I mean, the fun answer is you can do anything you want.
Because isn't that the purpose of electrical tape?
The legal answer, I mean, yeah, that would kind of be the purpose of electrical tape, but you know, and I don't mean as in repairing damaged power tools. I just mean as in being non-conductive.
Okay.
But as far as the legality of it, is even if there's not copper showing, let's get into just some really gnarly ends of the crux of regulations. Even if there's no electricity, even if the insulated wire inside the big insulated portion, right? Because you know how you got your positive, negative, and ground running through there,
Right.
and those are insulated inside the insulation.
Yes. I'm
Even
with
if
ya.
that's not showing, you still can't tape that shut.
And what would OSHA get me on?
So there's a fun place. They can either go to the manufacturer specifications.
Okay.
OSHA says that everything that we use has to be at minimum at manufacturer specifications. So originally that packaging was airtight, dustproof, and waterproof.
Okay.
And by having that damage in it, it is no longer any of those things.
Okay. I'm with that.
Okay. And so then the other end of it is if we do perform maintenance or repair on anything, that maintenance and repair must meet or exceed manufacturer specifications.
And
So
then there's always that.
the damage dropped below it and our repair did not meet it. So it would actually be two things.
You know, like when we teach forklifts, it's like you can't modify this unless you have written permission from
the
the
manufacturer.
You know, do you think they would get you on that?
I think they would just check the regulation on what it said we violated, because I
Right.
don't think the same wording is in hand and power tools.
But basically, we can't do our own repairs that doesn't bring it back to the manufacturer specs.
Right. It has to meet or exceed the specs.
And that's kind of a truism for every
Yep.
repair, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So if I start doing any type of electrical repair on that cord that doesn't meet manufacturer specs, OSHA's got me.
Yep.
Okay.
But that also goes for like our power tools as well. It has to go by what the owner's manual says. And so here's a fun place I've found a lot of my other employees with their power tools is the power tool will say right on it that this is a two-handed operation tool. And all the time, in one hand, they're holding what they're trying to cut, like up against their thigh. And on the other hand,
That sounds safe.
oh yeah, super safe. And then on the other hand, they have the two-handed power tool that they're using with one hand, and then they're cutting with it.
Okay. One thing that I haven't seen cited, but I know OSHA could. And it's
Okay.
along with what you're saying by not following how the manufacturer says to do something.
Sure.
Drill bit changes.
Drill bit changes. So I think in the OSHA reg, it says specifically, you must power down the tool and then remove it from power.
Yeah.
So you got to unplug it.
corded,
or disconnect
unplug,
it.
battery,
Battery
take
out.
the battery out.
Yep.
Who does that?
Dude, I don't see it often.
You've seen it though?
Yes.
I've never seen
So-
anybody change a bit and take a battery out.
Okay, I have to take that back. It was not a drill bit, but I was working with a guy in a confined space entry who was using an angle grinder, and he was going through wheels because he was cutting through stainless welds,
Okay.
and he was going through discs every 5 minutes. And we were in there for like 3 hours. And he literally went in with boxes of discs to get all this
Crazy.
stuff out. Every single one he changed, he turned around and unplugged that thing and changed every
kudos to
single
that
disc.
dude.
Yeah, he was awesome.
He's
He
a
was-
rare. See, that to me would be like if I had a safety incentive program.
Yeah,
You know, those little lottery cards, or you're buying lunch. Like I would do that for that guy,
yeah, he definitely earned it. that
even
day.
though it's not technically going above and beyond. It's just doing what you're supposed to do.
It was,
But that's still so rare to see someone
yeah,
take that safety seriously.
and that's another one like you even mentioned, just unplugging the battery. It's easy to remember a big power cord. Oh, just unplug it. But the
Right.
battery, like we don't think to unplug the battery.
Because you know what you do is you actually use that juice. That's what everybody's doing.
Mm-hmm.
They put it in reverse and then they grip that chuck really tight.
They back
and
it up
then
backwards.
they hit the trigger and then that unloosens it.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're putting a bigger bit in, you know, they dump that one out, they back it out to where that opens up a lot, and then they put the bit in, they put it on forward, they hold that, and they hit the trigger.
Right, and then it cinches up for them.
Now imagine if a part of your hand was touching that bit.
Or maybe a piece of your glove gets
Yes,
pinched
yep.
into the closing mechanism.
Sharp new bit or some type of paddle bit,
Yeah.
spade bit, something that's wider, and you start rotating that inside your hand.
Oof. With your hand intentionally on the chuck this time.
Yeah, and if you had that drill setting on fast,
Oh, yeah.
you know, we're seeing some injuries. So
Oh, man.
even though that seems like a nitpicky thing, it really could prevent a lot of hand injuries
That's an easy way to get there.
from bit changes.
You know what's one I just interestingly had come up was I was on a job site taking care of power tool inspection and hand tool inspection in a guy's go bag. He's just got a bunch of stuff that he always takes on every job site. He's got this little pouch with him. And 2 of his tools are electrically insulated. So only a
Okay.
very small part shows, or shows metal. All of the rest of it has all that insulation on it. But when I inspected his tools and I pulled out his screwdriver, it was the insulation was gone around the base of the handle, totally gone. And he was still using it for his electrically rated work on live components because he had to, because that was the tool for it. And I'm like, man, like you are so close to grounding out through this.
We could do a whole show just on electrically insulated tools.
Oh man, we could.
Because that gets into the hand tools. You know,
Yep.
if you're an electrician, you got a whole different gear that you level of importance on inspecting it and everything. Because
right,
you can get fried and zapped pretty good.
You know, we didn't even get to any gas operated tools today.
Oh man,
Talking about any of the violations with those,
and any of the hazards of creating flying particles.
Oh my gosh,
airborne hazards.
Right.
Yeah, there's always so much to talk about.
There's a mountain of stuff to talk about, but I hope you guys learned some stuff for some power and hand tool regulations today. Those are some really good, obvious, basic ones that I keep catching over and over and over again. Whether you're plant, general industry, construction, they're just super common.
But we want to thank you all for tuning in today to IBC's Evil Safety Dudes
the
podcast.
Evilest Safety Dudes.
Where we teach you how not to die at
Please don't
work.
die at
Dun,
work.
dun, dun. But in all seriousness, we hope you tune in next time and learn ways to prevent your employees and yourselves from getting injured at work. And we just all keep making that money, paying them bills, and live to tell about it.
Later, taters.
Peace out.